Welcome back, everyone. This is Friar Tux, this week's hobo tutorial. I was going to do some essential tools, but I've been seeing a lot of comments, and it's made me want to change the topic for today. And I know a lot of you may either have sympathized with homeless or been homeless yourself, or maybe even you're on the verge of homelessness. So therefore, you want to make sure that you've got the things, your things together that you actually need. And so what I really would like to talk about is what it's like being out here. I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that nobody really talks about, things like that. So, the first day homeless, you're always going to be, searching for resources. You're going to make a decision. Are you going to be a home bum, or are you going to be a traveler? If you're going to travel, how are you going to do it? Are you going to hitch? Are you going to walk? Are you going to take trails? Or are you going to hop trains? Now, things are changing because we're getting on a war footing. There's a lot more security on the trains, but it does not mean that you can't get on the trains. It just means that you need to be a little bit more cautious. And so I've had the opportunity to kind of do all of these different modes of travel and tell you what I like about each one and what I don't like about each one. Being a home bum is something that you're going to do if you plan on getting a job, getting back on your feet, and getting reestablished within society. But that doesn't mean that you do it in the area in which you just lost your job, or an area where you just became homeless, because there may not be the opportunities there for you that you actually need based upon your skill set or whatever it may be. So what you're really going to want to do is look for a region that has the type of work or an uptick in the need for the skill set in which you have. That's one thing. But being a home bum, if you don't have an animal, it's not really that bad compared to the way it used to be. But it also depends upon where you're at and what resources are available. I've been in places where I haven't been able to take a shower for 45 days. And I had to resort to doing things that were illegal in order to have enough for a hotel room so I could get a shower, because there were no shelters that offered showers. There are places out there that may only feed like once a day, so either you better get used to eating once a day, or you better get your food stamps. And some of these places accept food stamps, some of these places don't. And there are some restrictions on it, and even places that would normally you would expect to take food stamps don't necessarily take food stamps, and food stamps don't really last you a full month, especially when you're constantly having to eat food that is pre-packaged, pre-processed, and you can't really make it, because when you're home bumming, cooking inside the city is a little bit hard unless you go find a forested area. But then again, you got to make sure that you're not going into an area that's been blown up and things like that. Cooking, you're probably going to want to have the right equipment. Whether personally, if you're going to do it in the city, you want to get a butane burner or a propane burner, a single burner, something small, compact, and you're just going to have to realize that you've got that cost. And the next thing that you're going to really have to think about is, how do I raise money? How do I support myself and get my basics? How do I get the money together for my butane? How do I get the money together to buy my cook set? How do I get the money together to buy the gear that I need? Because the thing is as much as you go out there and buy gear, especially if you're buying gear on a budget because you're late to it, or you never really had a lot of money to spend on gear to begin with, or you thought that, hey, I do my research and find good gear. Gear is not really durable in the homeless setting like it is in the hiker setting, because you're going out for a couple of months and then you're coming back in. Okay, and so this plays across the spectrum, and these are things that you necessarily have to worry about. And when not having an animal, honestly, is going to be a lot easier on you. It's going to make things where ease of access to things that you need are there. And the next thing is you're going to want to keep your head low. Okay, because if you're somebody that wants to make a stink, or that wants to make a name for themselves or whatever, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up rocking the boat. You may end up getting denied access to services, and so on and so forth. And one of the biggest antagonists that you have to realize is that everybody has power over you, and some people are nice and reasonable, and they're fine, but a lot more people than you think are actually going to be more hostile towards you. They're going to use their position of influence to be able to push you in the direction that they think that you should go. You lose your right of choice in a lot of ways. You have to submit to whatever things that somebody may be expecting of you, because they're holding access to your basic necessities. And this can be infuriating, it can be depressing, and it can also bring you to the point of giving up. And plus, if you don't have a good attitude, or if you are not well seasoned and it's kind of like your first time out here, you're gonna be dealing with the emotional aspect. One of the things I don't really talk about is every couple of months I go through a fit of depression. I don't really talk about this, but sometimes I think about finding a 5-story building and seeing if I can fly like a squirrel. But I know I can't. But sometimes you really think about that, because the day-to-day, the stressors that you have to deal with, because you're always thinking about, are the cops around the corner? Am I visible enough to where somebody's going to harass me? Because the cities, they don't want you camping in the they don't want you camping in the city. They don't want to see a tent. They don't want to see a tarp. They don't really want to see a camp. They really don't want you to exist, and they're going to make your life really, really hard. And so being not seen is extremely important. Now, it's a skill that I learned early on, but now homelessness is so visible, and you got tent cities that are right there on the sidewalk in some of these cities that I've been through, and it's baffling to me, because we were never allowed to do that 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. If you set up a tent, you were going to jail. And back in the day, if you set up a tent, or even if you were caught being homeless, you would have the police, depending upon what area you're in. Like in Eugene, the police would give you a warning. In some places, the cops would come up, see you sleeping in a doorway, say you're trespassing, and then they would take you to jail. You have to go through the whole rigmarole. Now you've got a criminal record. Trespassing does not look really good when you're trying to rent an apartment or get a job. Okay, and so these things become an issue. And sometimes in the city, there are some cities that I've been to that do not have they don't have a forested area where you can go to that you would feel comfortable enough. But most of the important thing is just making sure that you're not seen, and making sure that that you keep a low profile. You're not really, when you go take homeless services, especially if you're planning on getting up on your feet, you're not there to commingle. You may develop some relationships with people in line and things like that, but you're not really going to spend a lot of time there. When people ask, well, who's that? Oh yeah, that's just, we see him here regularly, but we don't know who he is, because you haven't taken the time to really get into the homeless community. Now, if you think that you're going to be homeless for a long period of time, I would strongly recommend developing relationships, but also be careful who you develop relationships with, and be prepared to cut those relationships immediately. Okay, and so that's just the home bum side of it. And I mean, that's not everything. It would take me hours to tell you this and that and the other, and the real things that you have to deal with. Now, on the rails, the only thing you really have to worry about is getting caught getting on and the train, and also you don't want to get caught in the yard. That's one of the most important things that you don't want to do. Past that, most of the workers, they're too busy doing their job. They don't care about you. And if something happens to you, like you get ran over or something like that, they get days off because they were on that train. So that's another incentive for them not really to say anything, because these rail workers, they're not getting a lot of time off. So if a hobo happens to be stupid, well then, hey, that's their benefit, and so I mean, you gotta look at it from that standpoint. Whereas if you go on trail, being on trail is you kind of got to blend in with the hiker community. You've got to portray yourself as a hiker. You've got to really think about the different things that go on within the hiker community. You should probably watch some videos on hikers, so that you can understand not only jargon, but kind of the way that people are. But then that also means you're going to have to get gear that is very similar to it. Okay. That's just one thing that you're really going to have to think about. As far as van life, it's, there are places that you can stay. I have never been woken up at 2 a.m. by the police, because I know the laws well enough to where I know that I know that if you sleep at a hotel parking lot and you're there for less than 12 hours, that's next to a freeway, they're not going to bother you, especially if you tell them that you're traveling. But kind of go around. Don't do the same one all the time. You're going to have to constantly be moving, which means you're going to have resources, so on and so forth. Sam, you better not. Okay. So, I mean, you have these different things that you got to worry about. Or, what about traveling? Just hitching or things like that. I've never really had a lot of luck with hitching, but you can hitchhike and move around the country. But again, you're gonna have to think more like a hiker than you are like a hobo or somebody that does a different lifestyle. Okay, so sorry, we hear somebody around our camp. That's why we're both looking around. So that's another thing, is being alert, being secure. Being a light sleeper is very important. You don't really want to be a deep sleeper, because you never know who's going to come up on you, what's going to come up on you, or anything else like that. And that's one of the only positive things that Sam has, that I think, she sees a squirrel. Okay, leave it. These are things that you're gonna have to, really consider when being homeless. I mean, you have your good days, you have your bad days. You got to get used to just like sitting around. Like for the next 5 days, I really have nothing to do until I get paid from YouTube, so that I can move on to the next place. I'm not really trying to set roots here. So because I'm not setting roots here, it means I don't really have to worry too much, about certain things, like, finding long-term services and getting set up. But if you are going to stay in a place long-term, you should really look into the services that are there for you. Find out what's going to benefit you, what's not going to benefit you. And most importantly, you are who you associate with. And being homeless is not a bad thing. It's just a stage in life. If you let it, it could be a lifestyle. It could be the rest of your life. Depends upon, the decisions that you make later on. Whether are you going to get into drugs and alcohol? Do you have a criminal record? And things like that. And you got to realize that out here, people are very volatile. So just because somebody, snaps on you today does not mean that they're going to snap on you tomorrow. They may be having a bad day. Things may be going wrong. They may be going through withdrawals. You never know what's really going on. But at the end of the day, the interaction you have with someone today is not going to be the same interaction you have with someone tomorrow, except for you do have those people that hold grudges and all those different things. I mean, they are who they are, and there's nothing that you can do about it, except for just roll with the punches. And the thing is you're going to get beat up on verbally and emotionally. You're going to have people that will throw things out the car at you, just because they think it's funny, because it's okay to treat the homeless like crap. You're going to have people that will, like I had a guy during the live stream, I'll pay you $100 if you smoke a tweak and on the camera. To hell, I'm going to do that. You realize not only would that get me demonetized, but I'm not a drug addict. I like my weed, but as you notice, I haven't had any for a while. I haven't drinking in a while. I'm not going through withdrawals or anything else like that. I'm just sitting back and relaxing and letting my body rest up and recover from the stupidity of drinking for a couple of days. You can't let things become your vice. You cannot, one thing about Prophet that he said to me that I think really rings true for most people is that when you're out here, it's like, okay, I got nothing to do today, because you're going to have some downtime, because, it takes forever to get things going. It's a very slow process, and it's not like you can do it overnight unless you've been doing it a while, or you really, really know how the system works and how to find what it is that you want to do to accomplish, okay? But, you'll sit back and be like, I can have a beer today, and then a beer tomorrow, and then beers and beers and beers, and before you know it, you're a full-blown alcoholic going through withdrawals. Or, as another person told me, you sit around with the boys because you made friends, and one of them says, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and you're thinking, it's no big deal, and not realizing the consequences of what you're doing. Now, there is propaganda out there that says this and that and the other, and they will sit back and tell you you know, how it's not that bad, or, you know, it's not addictive, or it's this or it's that. And, you know, they will actually pitch you, because I have had people try pitching me on doing white dope multiple times, and I generally turn them down. But that's because I have things that are motivating me to stay clean, such as my YouTube channel, and now I have Sam, and so that's just another thing that keeps me from being super stupid. And a lot of people out here that have animals, yeah, you're denied access to services, and you're gonna get beat up even more, and people are going to discriminate against you twice as bad as what you're already going through. But that animal can also be your lifesaver, your lifeline, because it gives you that one reason to get up in the morning. It allows you to create routines. And one of the things, if you're really going to be successful out here, or just survive out here, you need to look up what are called the activities of daily living. They are 7 activities of daily living. I sit back and I think about them. You know, do you take a shower? Do you put on clean clothes? Do you brush your teeth? Do you eat? Do you prepare meals? Things like that. And the things that you can do, you know, or that you know, you kind of have to adapt, you know, to your situation. You're going to have to sit back and go, okay, this is what I will do for my activities of daily living, so that I can keep my mental stability. Because out here it is easy to go crazy. There are so many different things that will push you. I mean, you guys watch me every so often. I snap. I mean, with Sam and all the discrimination that we had, I had a breaking point. And then with all the dumb stuff that happened a couple of days ago, I hit another breaking point. I mean, like I said, it's twice as hard out here with an animal, so I'm reaching these breaking points and I'm snapping a lot more. And you have to be mentally prepared, mentally tough. You have to be able to take the abuse, because that is going to be the only way that you survive, and it will give you a completely different perspective on people and how you see the world, and all those different things. Now, a lot of it also has to do with your attitude, what you got going on upstairs, and how you perceive the world, because what you perceive is what you attract. So if you perceive positivity, you will attract positivity. It doesn't always happen that way, but that is the majority rule, okay? And so if you're going to be homeless, don't in the same way, I saw a comment from a guy saying that he was being made a maid, and you know, and he was basically doing it because it was stroking their ego, and it kept a roof over his head, because he was more concerned about having a roof over his head and more afraid of being homeless. Quite frankly, I would rather be homeless than stroke somebody's ego and let somebody run me around. Like, you're going to have that happen out here, but you get the choice in where and when you're going to allow that to happen. You know, I've had people try and tell me, I'll give you $1 if you do it. Keep your money. I don't need it. You know, and the thing is because I don't have those vices. I don't have those addictions. I mean, I have my cigarettes and I want my weed, but I don't need my weed. And I'm getting to the point where I'm willing to go without cigarettes, because it's becoming too costly, and I don't want to compromise myself to be able to, you know, support an expensive habit, which $5 a day is an expensive habit for me. Now, out here, for a crackhead, $5 a day is a drop in the bucket. They make $80 a day, you know, and that's how they support their crack habit, or $200, $300, $400, $500 a day. That's how they support their habit. Now, for me and the way that I operate, I don't want to compromise myself, who I am and what I do, but that is my choice. And this will also be your choice. You can compromise yourself to keep a roof over your head, and you are going to be worse off than if you just said, no, I'm going to stand on principles, because I am a free-thinking human being, and I just will not tolerate people using my situation to prop themselves up, because in order to move yourself up in this world, you got to step on a lot of people, and it's not right, but that's kind of the way that our society is. And when you are the lowly person, they're going to use you as a notch in their belt so that they can get better. Okay, this is the harsh reality and the harsh truth of what it's like being out here, being homeless. Okay, so it's not something you should be afraid of. It's something that you should be worried about, because even if you're a prepper, you're already prepared for predators and for people like that. But out here, you're going to actually get to experience those people firsthand, and more often than you think. And it's not really going to be that pretty, and you need to be able to spot it, understand what their traits are, their habits are, their mannerisms are, so that when somebody approaches you, like I had that guy that, you know, asked me about my hair, first thing I said is, dude, I don't swing that way, and I'm not going to do that with you. I let him know up front, and that's when he kind of started pushing me out, like, okay, yeah, I don't want to smoke with you, because he was trying to get me high so that he could, get his thing, and he thought that I would sell my soul for a nug, and I'm not going to. And the thing is that most people out here, once you compromise yourself once, it becomes easier to compromise yourself a second and a third and a fourth time, and you have to be strong-willed and refuse to let these people do what they're doing to you, because otherwise you will become their bitch, and you will become the world's bitch, and you will be nothing more than an indigent, codependent individual that you're gonna be the misery that you've been seeing out here on the streets, because most people, they end up not realizing that they were compromising themselves because they're like, well, he already gave it to me, I guess I owe him. No, you don't. But don't play somebody either. If you know that's where they're going, stop it in its tracks and turn around and walk away. Because if you lead them on, the consequences may be much worse. And if they let you go, you should consider yourself lucky. Okay, so that's all I've got to say on this subject. I hope that this kind of helps you guys understand what it's like out here, the stuff that I don't really talk about, and things like that, because one, people don't really need to know about it, and two, every time I talk about anything, it always seems, you're just complaining. No, actually, I don't complain. I'm giving you guys stories, and I'm telling you guys what's going on. I perfectly accept where I am, who I am. I learned a long time ago to love myself and to care about myself, and that's why I set these boundaries, and setting boundaries is extremely important. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week in next week's Hobo tutorial.